Combat nurse Mara Vale was halfway through, dragging a wounded soldier from the burning vehicle when Rook, the scarred military colonel, clamped his teeth into her sleeve and refused to let her move. Ammunition cracked in the heat. Outside, Major Silas Graves screamed for her to abandon the dog and run toward the marked rescue lane. But Rook planted his body across the door like he knew death was waiting beyond it. In the wounded soldier's bloody fist was a bent dog tag, and on Mara's shoulder was the old patch everyone on base had been ordered not to mention. Mercy 6. Then Rook began growling at the empty road ahead. Why would a war dog trap the woman trying to save him inside a burning vehicle? Before this rescue turns into something no one on that base was ready to face. Tell us where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments and subscribe if stories of brave dogs, hidden heroes, sacrifice, and emotional justice still mean something to you. The vehicle had stopped moving, but the war had not. Smoke filled the inside of the overturned Humvee in thick black folds, pressing against Mara Vale's throat until every breath tasted like burned rubber and blood. The windshield was gone. The radio was screaming with broken static. Somewhere beneath the dashboard, a fuel line hissed with a sound too soft for how deadly it was. Mara lay across the tilted floorboard, one knee buried in shattered glass, one hand pressed against the bleeding side of the young soldier beside her. "Stay with me," she ordered. "Look at me. Don't close your eyes." The soldier's name tape was half torn away, but she had seen it before the blast. Boone. Private Eli Boone, 19, my BB 20, too young to have learned the empty calm that came after fear. He tried to speak, but only blood touched his lips. Mara shoved a pressure bandage under his vest and tightened it hard. Boone convulsed, then grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Not the road," he whispered. "What?" His eyes rolled toward the broken passenger door. "They're waiting." Before Mara could answer, Rook lunged. The German Shepherd had been thrown against the rear storage cage when the explosion flipped them. One side of his muzzle was bleeding. His left ear hung low. But his eyes were bright, furious, and fixed on the opening where smoke poured out into the road. Mara reached for Boone's drag strap. "Rook, move!" The dog did not move. "Rook, down!" He pressed himself harder against the gap, blocking the only clear exit. His teeth closed around Mara's sleeve just above the wrist, not enough to break skin, enough to stop her. Outside, boots hammered the dirt. "Vale!" Major Silas Graves shouted. "Get out of there now! Leave the animal!" Mara twisted toward his voice. Through the smoke she saw the rescue lane, a strip of road between two walls of rock, painted by firelight. A green smoke marker burned 20 yards away. Beyond it, the medevac team waved frantically. That was where they were supposed to go. That was where procedure said safety was. Rook snarled, not at Mara, not at Boone. At the road, Major Graves appeared in the smoke with his sidearm drawn and his face streaked with dust. "Sergeant Vale, that vehicle cooks off in 2 minutes. Drag the casualty and move." "I am trying," Mara shouted. "The dog won't let me." "Then put him down." The words struck harder than the blasts. Rook froze for half a second, as if he understood. Then he shoved his head under Mara's arm and forced her backward into the vehicle. "Rook!" she cried. The dog snapped once toward the open road. A click sounded outside. Mara heard it because she had spent 6 years learning the difference between chaos and warning. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was a small metallic answer beneath the shouting, beneath the flames, beneath the radio static. Her eyes found the green smoke marker. It was not sitting on the ground. It was wired to a pressure plate. "Down!" Mara screamed. The world outside became white. The second blast swallowed the rescue lane. Heat punched through the broken door. Dust and stone fragments whipped across the Humvee. Mara threw herself over Boone as the vehicle rocked on its side. Metal shrieking. Men shouted outside. Someone cried out for a medic. The safe route vanished under a falling sheet of rock. Rook had not trapped her inside the burning vehicle. He had kept her from walking into the real ambush. For 3 seconds, Mara could not hear anything except her own heartbeat. Then Boone began choking. She went back to work because that was what she knew how to do when fear wanted her hands. She cleared his airway. She sealed the wound under his ribs. She checked his pulse with 2 fingers that would not stop shaking. Rook turned in a tight circle and began digging under the twisted center console. Rook, no, Mara coughed. We have to move. But the dog kept clawing, whining now, a sound almost human. He dragged something from beneath a sheet of melted plastic and dropped it into Mara's lap. At first she thought it was a strip of burned fabric. Then she saw the stitching. A patch, black thread, faded, white wings. 1 word across the bottom. Mercy. Mara stopped breathing. That patch did not belong in this convoy. It did not belong on this road. It belonged to a mission buried under locked files, sealed reports, and 13 folded flags. It belonged to the night Mara Vale had stopped using her call sign, because everyone who had spoken it afterward had died. Major Graves climbed onto the side of the Humvee, eyes wild. Vale, Mara, looked up at him through smoke and flame. The mercy patch clenched in her fists. For 1 instant, Graves did not look relieved to find her alive. He looked afraid. Then his face hardened. "Give me the casualty," he said. Rook growled again. This time he was not looking at the road. He was looking at Major Silas Graves. Mara's instincts tightened around her like wire. She remembered Boone's whisper, "Not the road. They're waiting." She remembered the green smoke marker placed exactly where procedure would send them. She remembered the forbidden patch inside a vehicle that had been assigned only that morning. And suddenly the burning Humvee felt less like an accident and more like a message. Mara wrapped the patch around Boone's dog tag chain, shoved both under her vest, and made a decision that could end her career if she survived long enough to be punished for it. She would not hand Boone to Graves, not yet, not until she knew why Rook, a dog trained to obey without hesitation, had chosen disobedience in the one moment it saved her life. Behind them, something in the engine compartment popped. Flames pushed closer. The countdown had become real. Mara grabbed Boone's harness with both hands. "Rook," she said, her voice low and shaking, "find us another way out." The dog turned from Graves, looked once at the blocked rescue lane, then shoved his body toward the shattered rear window, where smoke curled into a narrow ravine no one outside could see. And Mara understood. The war dog was not done saving them. He was leading them away from the people who already knew where they were supposed to die. The rear window was no longer a window. It was a jagged mouth of bent metal, glass, and heat. Beyond it, the ravine dropped into shadow, steep enough to break a leg and narrow enough to hide in. Mara looked from Boone's gray face to Rook's bleeding muzzle and knew there were no good choices left. "Vale," Major Graves shouted from the other side. "Do not move that casualty without command authorization." Mara almost laughed, but smoke stole the sound from her chest. Command authorization. The phrase had buried better people than her. She wrapped Boone's arm across his own vest, hooked her hands through the drag straps, and pulled him backward inch by inch. He made a broken sound when his boots caught under the seat frame. "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry." "I know." Rook climbed through first, shoulders scraping against the broken frame. He landed outside in the ravine, turned, and barked once, not panic. Direction. Mara pushed Boone's legs through the opening, then followed, cutting her forearm on glass as she slid down the slanted metal. The moment her boots hit loose stone, Rook caught Boone's sleeve in his teeth and helped pull. Behind them, Graves appeared at the rear of the Humvee. His rifle was raised, but not toward the hills. toward them. For half a breath, Mara and Graves stared at each other through smoke. Then voices came from the road above. "Major, we've got two down by the marker." Graves lowered the rifle so quickly Mara wondered if she had imagined it. "Vale," he called, voice suddenly controlled. "You are disoriented. Bring the casualty back to the lane." Rook's growl rolled through the ravine. Mara did not answer. She pulled Boone behind a fallen slab of rock just as the Humvee's engine compartment burst. The explosion threw orange light over the canyon walls. For a moment, the whole world became fire and shadow. Mara shielded Boone's face with her body and felt heat slide over her back like a hand. When the blast faded, she listened. Gunfire cracked from the eastern ridge, not random, measured, waiting. The ambush had not ended with the second bomb. The second bomb had only sealed the first exit. Mara pressed her radio. "This is Sergeant Vale. Casualty Boone alive. Requesting smoke cover and alternate extraction South Ravine." Static answered. She changed channels. "Mercy 6 to Convoy Net. Do you copy?" The call sign slipped out before she could stop it. Silence followed. Then a voice she did not know whispered over the net, "Mercy 6 is there." Mara's blood turned cold. Rook lifted his head, ears stiff. The voice was gone. She tried again. "Identify yourself." "Nothing." Boone coughed, blood bubbling against the seal she had placed under his ribs. He tried to open his eyes. "Mara," he whispered. She froze. No one in this convoy should have known her first name. On the manifest she was Staff Sergeant Vale, temporary medical attachment. To most of the young soldiers she was just Doc. "How do you know me?" Boone's fingers twitched toward his chest. He said, "If anything happened, find Mercy." "Who said?" Boone's face tightened with pain. "The man who gave me the tag." Mara looked down. The chain under her vest felt suddenly heavy. Rook moved close to Boone and laid his nose against the soldier's wrist. The dog inhaled once, then whined. Not the shock whine of fear. Recognition. Mara had seen that reaction before. Years ago in another country, another valley, another convoy burning under a moonless sky. Rook had been younger then, all muscle and obedience. His handler had trusted him more than any sensor, any map, any order, and Mara had trusted a human officer instead. That mistake had followed her home. She leaned close to Boone. "Private, listen to me. I need name." But Boone's eyes rolled back. Above them, Graves' voice boomed over the loudspeaker from an armored vehicle. "All units, Sergeant Vale has removed a casualty from triage control and entered an unsafe zone. Recover her and the soldier immediately." Removed a casualty, unsafe zone. Mara understood the shape of it instantly. In a report, those words could turn rescue into misconduct, disobedience into recklessness, survival into evidence against her. Rook stood, hackles raised, and stared down the ravine. Mara followed his line of sight. A red laser dot trembled across the rock beside Boone's head. She grabbed his vest and rolled them both as a rifle round snapped overhead. Rook launched forward into the dark, barking once, then vanished around a bend. "Rook!" Mara hissed. Another shot cracked, followed by a man's shout and the unmistakable sound of teeth meeting flesh. Mara could not see the attacker, but she heard him fall. The dog returned 10 seconds later with something in his mouth, a torn strip of cloth. Not enemy camouflage. U.S. convoy fabric. Mara stared at it, then looked up toward the road where Graves was ordering men to recover her. The shooter in the ravine had come from their side. Boone regained a thin thread of consciousness. His lips moved. Mara bent close. "Route," he whispered. "Route was changed before we left." "By who?" Boone's breath hitched. His eyes found hers with a terror too old for his face. "Graves." A flare rose above the ravine, painting everything red. Rook stepped over Boone's body, placing himself between Mara and the road, and dropped the torn cloth on the ground. Attached to it was a small black tab stamped with a unit code Mara had not seen in 6 years. The same code as the Mercy Patch, the same code from the mission Graves had sworn never happened. Mara pressed her bloody hand over Boone's wound and looked toward the ridge where friendly rifles and enemy rifles had begun to sound. If Boone was telling the truth, the ambush had not only been waiting, it had been invited, and the only witness still alive was bleeding out under her hands. By the time Mara reached the forward aid station, her uniform had dried stiff with smoke and blood. She did not remember the last 200 yards clearly. She remembered Rook moving ahead of her through the ravine, stopping at every bend, testing the ground before she dragged Boone across it. She remembered friendly soldiers yelling from above, unsure whether to help or aim. She remembered Boone's pulse slipping twice beneath her fingers and returning both times, because she refused to let it go. Most of all, she remembered Major Graves standing at the entrance to the medical tent, with a look that told her he had already written the story. "Put him on the center table," Mara ordered. 2 medics hesitated. Graves stepped in front of her. "This casualty is being transferred to command custody. He is in hemorrhagic shock. He is a material witness. He is a patient." Graves leaned closer. "And you are a nurse who disobeyed an extraction order." The tent went quiet. Men who had watched Mara crawl out of a burning vehicle with a living soldier on her back now stared at the floor. No one wanted to stand between a major and a staff sergeant, whose file already carried too many sealed pages. Mara held Boone's A5 bag above her shoulder. "Move, sir." Graves' jaw tightened. "You forget yourself." Rook stepped between them. The dog's body was low, his eyes locked on Graves' right hand. Not his face, not his weapon, his hand. Graves looked down at him and smiled without warmth. "This animal is unstable." "Funny," Mara said. "He has been right more often than you today." The silence sharpened. Then a new voice cut through the tent. "Enough." Colonel Aaron Holden entered with 2 military police officers behind him. He was tall, gray-haired, and carried authority without needing to raise his voice. His eyes moved from the blood on Mara's uniform to Boone's white face to Rook's rigid stance. "Sergeant Vale," he said. "Report." Mara did not waste words. "I disabled the lead medical vehicle. Second charge was placed along the mock rescue lane. 9 Rook prevented movement into the blast zone. Casualty." Boone warned of an ambush and stated the route was changed before departure. Holden's expression did not change, but Graves did. "Private Boone is delirious," Graves said. "Sergeant Vale is compromised by prior trauma, connected to this animal and this region." Mara felt the old wound open. Prior trauma. That was what they called it when a person could still hear the dead. It sounded cleaner than guilt. Holden looked at her. "Is that true?" Mara met his eyes. "I was involved in a prior mission in this valley." Rook was there, and Major Graves. She turned slightly. Graves held her gaze. "Yes," she said. "He was there too." The tent grew colder than the night outside. Boone convulsed on the litter. Mara pushed past Graves, snapped gloves onto shaking hands, and went back to saving the only person who could explain why the past had climbed out of its grave in the middle of the road. She cut away Boone's vest, packed the wound, called for plasma, and ordered pressure without looking up to see who obeyed. They obeyed. Even Graves. For the next 9 minutes, the tent belonged to Mara Vale. She moved with the controlled fury of someone who had learned to grieve later. She caught the bleed. She opened Boone's airway. She corrected the medic who hung the wrong bag. When Boone's heart stumbled, she slapped a hand against the table and said, "No, not yet." Rook lay beside the table, eyes never leaving Boone's face. At last, the monitor found a rhythm strong enough to make the tent breathe again. Mara stepped back, sweat running through soot on her cheeks. "He needs surgery," she said. "Now," Colonel Holden nodded. "Prepare transport to base hospital." "No," Graves said too quickly. Everyone looked at him. He smoothed his voice. "The road is compromised. Air evac only. I will personally coordinate transfer." Rook rose. A low growl filled the space. Mara followed the dog's eyes again. Graves' right hand was closed around something. He seemed to notice at the same time she did, and slipped it into his pocket. "What is that?" Mara asked. "Nothing relevant. Doesn't show us." Graves' face hardened. "Careful, Sergeant." Before Mara could answer, Boone's hand shot up from the table and grabbed her sleeve. His eyes open, feverish and terrified. "Don't let him take it," he rasped. "Take what?" Holden asked. Boone's fingers clawed toward Mara's vest. Mara reached inside and pulled out the burned Mercy patch, the torn unit tab, and the bent dog tag. She had not yet looked closely at the tag, because survival had taken every second. Now, under the surgical lights, she turned it over. The name stamped into the metal hit her so hard she almost dropped it. Calder, Samuel R. Mara's throat closed. Sam Calder had been her team lead on the mission that officially did not exist. He had been the man who put Rook's leash into her hand before the final blast and told her, "EIF, he refused an order." Listen, Sam Calder had died 6 years ago. His dog tag had been listed as unrecovered. Boone began to cry without sound. "He gave it to me," Boone whispered. "Not 6 years ago, 3 days ago." Mara stared at him. "That's impossible," she said. Boone's eyes shifted to Graves. He said Graves left them alive. The tent seemed to tilt beneath Mara's feet. Colonel Holden turned slowly toward the major. Graves did not deny it. He only looked at the dog tag, then at Rook, and for the first time his mask cracked completely. "Private Boone is sedated," he said. He does not know what he is saying, but Rook knew. The dog walked to Mara's side, pressed his bloodied muzzle against the tag, and released a sound so full of grief that even the military police looked away. Mara closed her fist around Sam Calder's dog tag. 3 days ago. A dead man's tag. A living witness. A route changed before departure. She had spent 6 years believing she had failed the dead. Now the dead were reaching back through a wounded soldier and a war dog, telling her the truth had never been buried. It had been hidden by someone still wearing a uniform. They moved Boone to the surgical wing under guard. Colonel Holden doubled the detail at the doors, restricted Major Graves from the operating room, and ordered the convoy route logs pulled from command servers. On paper, it looked like control. In the air, it felt like a storm holding its breath. Mara stood outside the glass wall while surgeons worked on Boone. She had cleaned her hands 3 times, but blood remained under her nails. Sam Calder's dog tag lay on the sink beside her, wrapped in gauze like evidence from a crime scene. Rook sat at her feet. He refused water, refused anyone else. Every few seconds, he lifted his nose toward the hallway where Graves had gone and growled softly. Mara crouched beside him. "You knew, didn't you?" Rook looked at her with eyes too steady for comfort. She remembered the old mission in fragments because her mind had protected her from the whole thing. Mercy Sick had been a medical recovery team assigned to pull civilians and soldiers from a mountain clinic after an informant warned of an attack. Sam Calder led the convoy. Mara was the combat medic. Rook was the 9 attached for route clearance. Major Graves, then a captain, held command authority from operations. 2 miles from extraction, Rook had refused the road. Just like today, Sam had wanted to stop. Mara had believed him, but Graves ordered them forward, saying intelligence showed no threat, and delay would cost lives at the clinic. Mara had watched Sam hesitate. She had watched Rook pull against the leash until his paws bled. Then the convoy moved. Only Mara and Rook came home from the first blast. At least, that was what the report said. Mara closed her eyes. "What did I miss?" she whispered. Rook stood suddenly. His ears lifted. His nose turned toward the storage wing where wreckage from the ambushed vehicles was being processed for investigation. "No," Mara said. "Absolutely not." Rook took one step. Rook, he looked back once, then trotted away. Mara followed because 6 years too late, she had finally learned. The storage wing smelled of fuel, wet ash, and hot metal. Floodlights hummed over rows of damaged equipment. 2 mechanics worked near the far door, but they paid Mara little attention as she moved between crates marked with vehicle numbers. Rook stopped at a blackened communications box taken from the overturned Humvee. He pawed at it. Mara checked the tag. Lead medical vehicle. Her vehicle. The box should have been destroyed. One side was melted, but the internal casing remained intact. A thin data cable hung from it, like a severed nerve. Rook pawed again, harder. Mara found a field tablet on a nearby workbench. Its screen was cracked but functional. She connected the cable and waited. Nothing. Then a recovery menu flickered. Raw package downloaded. Modification timestamp. 417 hours. Authorization code. Mercy 6. Mara's skin went cold. Mercy 6 was not an active call sign. It had not been authorized for 6 years. No one should have been able to use it. No one except someone with access to sealed mission archives. The tablet asked for biometric confirmation. Mara almost pulled away. Then she saw the secondary prompt. Voice override. Accepted. A recording loaded. Static. Then her own voice, distorted and clipped, spoke from the dead machine. Mercy 6 confirms route change. Proceed through Glass Ravine. Mara staggered backward. Rook barked. "That is not me," she whispered. The file replayed. Her voice, her call sign, her authorization. The route that led them into the ambush. Someone had built the perfect lie from pieces of her past. The mechanics at the far door had gone quiet. Mara turned. Major Graves stood behind her. He was alone. For once, he was not pretending to be calm. "You should have let the fire finish its work," he said. Mara gripped the tablet. "You forged my authorization. I preserved operational necessity. You sent us into a kill zone. I sent one compromised soldier into a controlled interception. You were not supposed to be in that vehicle." The words landed with terrible clarity. Boone had been the target. Mara had been collateral. Rook moved between them, teeth bared. Graves drew his sidearm halfway. "Call him off." "Why?" Mara asked. "Afraid he remembers more than I do." Graves' eyes flicked to the dog. "That animal has ruined enough missions." "No," Mara said. "He survived them." For a moment, neither moved. Then the overhead lights cut out. The storage wing dropped into emergency red. Rook lunged before Mara saw the second man. A shadow came from behind a burned vehicle frame, arm raised with a metal bar. Rook hit him at the waist and drove him into the concrete. The man screamed. Graves turned and ran. Mara grabbed the tablet and sprinted after him. But the far security door slammed shut in her face. A lock clicked. Fire alarms began wailing. From the surgical wing, an announcement burst over the base speakers. "Emergency transfer ordered for patient Boone. Surgical transport team to West Ambulance Bay." Mara froze. She had not ordered a transfer. Holden would not have ordered one without telling her. Rook released the attacker and rushed to her side, barking toward the west corridor. Mara looked at the tablet in her hand, then at the locked door, then toward the place where Boone lay unconscious and guarded by people who might already have been removed. The evidence mattered, but Boone was alive, and Graves had just decided to correct that mistake. Mara shoved the tablet under her vest, wiped blood from her forearm, and ran after Rook into the red-lit hallway. Behind her, the forged voice on the cracked tablet replayed one last time through its broken speaker. Mercy 6 confirms route change. This time, Mara heard the small flaw beneath the distortion. A second voice in the background, Graves whispering before the recording cut off, "Make her the ghosts." The West Ambulance Bay was too quiet. That was the first thing Mara noticed. Military hospitals were never silent in the middle of an emergency. There should have been wheels rattling, doors slamming, medics shouting blood types and vitals. Instead, the bay lights flickered over an empty concrete lane and one idling ambulance with its rear doors open. Rook stopped at the corner and lowered his body. Myra stopped with him. A younger version of herself would have rushed straight in. A younger version had trusted urgency more than instinct. That version had lost Sam Calder and most of Mercy 6 on a road where a dog had tried to warn them. Not again. She crouched beside Rook. "Show me." Rook moved along the wall, nose close to the ground. He bypassed the open ambulance and led her to a drain grate near the loading ramp. There, half hidden in dirty water, lay a strip of medical tape. Mara picked it up. Boone's name was written on it in black marker. A door clicked behind her. Colonel Holden stepped into the corridor with his pistol raised, 2 military police officers at his back. "Sergeant Vale, hands where I can see them." Mara slowly lifted one hand. The other held the tape. "Colonel, Boone's been moved. Major Graves reported you assaulted personnel in evidence storage and fled with classified material. Did he also mention he forged my voice to change the convoy route?" Holden's eyes sharpened. "Where is the material?" Mara touched her vest. One of the officers stepped forward. Rook growled. "Call off the dog," Holden said. "Sir," Mara said carefully, "Rook has identified threats correctly 3 times today. The rescue lane, the shooter in the ravine, the attacker in storage. If he is growling now, it is not at you." Holden did not look away from her. "Then who?" Rook turned his head toward the officer on Holden's left. The officer's finger tightened on his weapon. Mara saw the movement. "Down!" she shouted. The officer fired. Holden ducked sideways as the shot cracked past his shoulder. Rook launched into the officer's legs. The second MP tackled the man before he could fire again. The bay erupted into motion. Holden stared at the traitor on the floor, then at Rook. For the first time, the colonel looked shaken. Mara lowered her hand. "Boone is not in the ambulance." Holden recovered fast. "Where is he?" Rook answered by running to the farm maintenance door. Mara followed. Holden followed her. The door opened onto a service tunnel that ran beneath the hospital toward the older airstrip. Pipes lined the ceiling. Emergency bulbs cast long yellow pools across the concrete. Fresh wheel marks cut through dust on the floor. A gurney had gone this way. Fast. Boone was being taken off base without records, away from protection. Away from protection. Away from anyone who might hear what he knew. Mara ran. Her injured knees screamed. Her lungs burned from smoke damage. Every few yards, Rook stopped and checked corners, then surged ahead. Holden's boots pounded behind them. The tunnel split in 3. Rook chose left without. Boone's voice echoed faintly. "No, please." Mara's whole body tightened. They found him near the old generator room, strapped to a field stretcher beside a utility cart. An oxygen mask covered his face. His IV line had been clamped. His skin was nearly translucent. A man in surgical scrubs stood beside him with a syringe. Major Graves stood behind the man. "Step away from him," Mara said. Graves turned slowly. He did not look surprised. "Sergeant Vale," he said, still mistaking defiance for courage. Holden entered behind her, weapon raised. "Major Graves, you are relieved of command." Graves smiled. "By whose authority?" "Mine." "Your authority ended the moment command received evidence that Sergeant Vale forced a route change, removed a witness, and used an unstable 9 to attack U.S. personnel. Mara pulled the tablet from her vest. This evidence, Graves' smile faded. Holden glanced at her. You have the recording. And the metadata. The man in scrubs moved. Rook hit him before the syringe touched Boone's line. The syringe skittered across the floor. Mara rushed to Boone, unclamped the IV, checked his pulse, and pulled the oxygen mask aside. Boone opened his eyes. Mara, he breathed. I'm here, Sam. His voice fractured. Sam said, Rook would know. Graves raised his pistol. Everything slowed. Holden shouted. Mara threw herself across Boone. Rook was faster than all of them. The dog slammed into Graves' arm as the shot fired. The bullet struck a pipe overhead, sending steam screaming into the room. Graves stumbled back, lost his weapon, and vanished through the far exit into the generator haze. Rook chased him. Rook, Mara called. The dog disappeared. Holden ran after him, but a second shot cracked from beyond the steam. Then came a sound Mara never wanted to hear from any living creature. A sharp, wounded yelp. Mara's heart stopped. She secured Boone's line with shaking hands. Colonel, get him to surgery. Holden hesitated. Sergeant, get him to surgery. Boone grabbed her wrist. His fingers were weak, but his eyes were clear. He kept Sam alive. Boone whispered. Mara leaned closer. Who? Boone swallowed hard. Rook. 6 years. Rook found him after the first blast. Graves left them there. Sam was alive for 2 days. Mara could not move. Boone's tears slid into his hairline. Sam made me memorize it. The cache, the file, the names. He said if Graves came back, give Mercy the tag. Where is Sam now? Mara asked, though some part of her already knew the answer. Boone closed his eyes. He died getting me out. Mara looked toward the steam-filled exit where Rook had vanished after the man who had left her team to die. For 6 years, she had carried guilt like a sentence. Now she knew the sentence had been written by a liar. She placed Sam Calder's tag into Boone's hand. Hold this, she said. Then she stood. Holden caught her arm. You're injured. Mara pulled free. So is Rook. The emergency lights flickered again. Somewhere beyond the generator room, the old airstrip alarm began to sound. Major Graves was running for the one place on base where a helicopter could lift off without crossing the hospital gate, and Rook, bleeding or not, was still chasing the truth. The old airstrip had not been used in months, but its floodlights came alive as Mara reached the outer door. Rain had begun without her noticing. It fell in hard silver lines across the tarmac, turning dust to black mud and washing smoke from the night. Beyond the service road, a small helicopter waited with its engine whining, rotors beginning to turn. Graves was 20 yards from it. Rook was 10 yards behind him. The dog ran unevenly, one hind leg dragging, dark blood cutting through the rain on his flank. But he did not slow. Not for pain, not for age, not for the man who had ordered him killed twice in one day. Mara burst onto the tarmac. Graves, he turned. For 1 second, the major looked exactly like the man she remembered from Mercy 6, clean jaw, command eyes, a man who could speak in calm sentences while other people burned. You don't understand what you're carrying, he shouted over the helicopter. That file will destroy more than me. It's shot. It will expose operations assets, people still in the field. You mean it will expose what you did? Graves backed toward the helicopter. I made choices. You abandoned them. I contained failure. Mara stepped closer, pistol in both hands, though she could barely feel her fingers. Sam Calder was alive. Graves' face twitched. Rook growled, moving to Mara's side. He was alive, Mara repeated, and this time her voice broke. You heard him on the radio. You heard all of them. Graves looked past her, searching for Holden, for backup, for any piece of authority he could still use as armor. Mercy 6 was compromised. They were wounded. They knew too much. There it was. No apology, no grief, no shame. Just the truths, stripped of uniform and rank. Mara felt the last 6 years shift inside her. The nightmares did not vanish. The guilt did not disappear, but it changed shape. It was no longer proof she had failed them. It was proof she had loved them enough to keep listening for their voices. Rook lunged. Graves grabbed a flare from his vest and struck it against the tarmac. Red fire burst to life. He threw it toward a stack of old fuel drums beside the hangar. Rook! Mara screamed. The dog turned instinctively toward the flare. Graves ran for the helicopter. Mara fired once at the tarmac in front of him. He stumbled, fell, and rolled behind a maintenance cart. From there, he pulled a second weapon. The first shot cracked past Mara's ear. She dropped behind a concrete barrier. The helicopter pilot climbed out and ran, abandoning the aircraft as the tarmac became a battlefield. Holden's voice came through Mara's radio. Vale, hold position. Security teams are inbound. But Graves was moving again, this time toward the hangar beside the fuel drums. Rook saw him and followed. The flare rolled under the drums. Fire spread fast, too fast. Mara understood with horror that Graves was not trying to escape now. He was trying to burn the last evidence, whatever waited inside that hangar, whatever Boone had called the cache. Rook vanished through the half-open hangar door after him. Mara ran. Behind her, Holden shouted her name. Inside the hangar, heat bloomed against her face. Old crates, tarps, and maintenance cloth burned in lines of orange along the floor. Smoke gathered under the rafters. A row of decommissioned vehicles sat beneath canvas covers, their shapes like sleeping beasts. Rook barked from somewhere deeper inside. Mara followed the sound through smoke. Rook, a gunshot answered. She ducked behind an old armored truck as the round punched metal above her head. Through the shifting smoke, she saw Graves near a storage cage, stuffing folders into a burned barrel. Rook stood between him and the exit. Blood dripped from the dog's side. Graves aimed at him. Mara fired. The shot struck the burned barrel, scattering flaming paper across the floor. Graves cursed and dove away. Rook did not attack. Instead, he turned toward the armored truck Mara hid behind and began clawing at its rear door. "Not now," Mara shouted. The dog clawed harder. Mara coughed, eyes burning. "Rook, come." He refused. Again, a burning building. A war dog blocking escape. The same impossible choice. Mara's chest tightened with fear and memory. Then she saw the faded marking on the armored truck's door. Mercy 6. Her world narrowed. This was not a random vehicle. This was one of the missing vehicles from the old convoy. The report had said it was destroyed beyond recovery overseas. Yet here it was, hidden in an abandoned hangar on the same base where Graves had tried to erase Boone. Rook barked once, sharp and desperate. Mara ran to the rear door and pulled. It did not move. She found the latch melted with rust, kicked it once, twice, then jammed a pry bar from the floor into the seam and threw her weight against it. The door screamed open. Inside, beneath a cracked emergency blanket, was a metal field case. Mara dragged it out. Graves appeared through the smoke, face twisted. "Leave it." Rook lunged, but his injured leg buckled. Graves raised his pistol. Mara pulled the field case against her chest and stepped in front of the dog. For the first time that night, fear did not make her hesitate. "Rook saved me from one burning vehicle," she said. "I'm not leaving him in another." The hangar roof groaned above them. Holden and the security team broke through the side entrance. Graves looked at the soldiers, at Mara, at the case, and understood he had lost command of the story. So he did the only thing left. He fired at the fuel drums. The explosion threw Mara and Rook backward into the open belly of the Mercy 6 vehicle. The rear door slammed halfway shut. Fire rolled across the hangar floor. Mara hit the metal deck hard, the field case under her ribs, Rook collapsing beside her. Outside, men shouted. Inside, smoke swallowed the air. Mara reached for the door. Rook bit her sleeve. Not hard. Just enough. Again, he would not let her leave. Mara stared at him, panic rising. No, no, not again. We have the case. Rook pulled her backward, deeper into the vehicle. Then Mara heard it, a faint beep under the driver's seat, a pressure trigger. Graves had wired the exit. If she had crawled out, she would have killed herself, Rook, and everyone coming to help. Mara looked at the dog through tears and smoke. You stubborn hero, she whispered. Rook laid his head against the field case. Outside, the fire closed in. Inside the hidden Mercy 6 vehicle, Mara realized the dog had not led her into a trap. He had led her to the only proof strong enough to free the dead. But now they had less than a minute to survive with it. Mara measured time by breaths. The first breath burned. The second tore through her throat. By the fifth, she was coughing so hard she could barely keep one hand on the field case and the other on Rook's collar. The old armored vehicle had become an oven, its metal skin holding heat from the hangar fire. Through the half-closed rear door, orange light pulsed like something alive. Vale, Holden shouted outside. Do not move, we see the device. Mara laughed once painfully. Of course he did. Now everyone believed the dog. Rook's body trembled beside her. She pressed her palm over the wound in his flank. Stay with me. The dog blinked slowly. No, she said. You do not get to save me all night and leave before the ending. Outside, voices overlapped. Wire under the frame. Back up. Get the suppressant line. Colonel, the roof is coming down. Mara looked at the field case. Its lock was old, military grade, scorched along one side. Sam Calder's initials had been scratched into the handle. With something sharp, SC. Her vision blurred. 6 years ago, Sam had given Rook a command before the convoy rolled forward. Guard Mercy. Mara had thought he meant the team. Maybe he had meant her. Maybe Rook had spent 6 years carrying the last order of a dying man, waiting for the day the truth came close enough to bite. The radio on Mara's shoulder crackled. Holden's voice came through, controlled but strained. Sergeant, listen carefully. The device is connected to the rear pressure plate. If you cross the threshold, it triggers. We need to cut power from outside, but the fire is blocking access. Mara looked toward the front of the vehicle. The driver's side door was crushed inward. The passenger side was blocked by fallen debris. But above the center console, the roof hatch sat slightly open. Can we go up? She asked. There was a pause. Holden answered negative. Roof is unstable. Rook lifted his head. He looked up. Mara followed his eyes. The hatch, then the field case, then something above the driver's seat. A small black recorder mounted near the roofline. The vehicle's internal mission camera. If it still had storage, it might hold the final moments of Mercy 6. It might hold Sam alive. It might hold Graves' voice. Mara reached for it. The mount was jammed. She pulled once, twice, then used the edge of Sam's dog tag to pry at the casing. The recorder snapped free and fell into her lap. The field case clicked. Mara froze. Not a bomb, a mechanical lock, loosened by heat. The lid opened half an inch. Inside were folders sealed in plastic, a blood-marked map, 2 data drives, and a folded letter wrapped around a photograph. Mara took the letter with shaking fingers. On the outside, in Sam Calder's handwriting, were 4 words. For Mercy, if found. She could not open it. Not there, not while Rook bled and the vehicle cooked around them. Some truths deserved air. A shadow crossed the rear opening. Graves. He was burned along one side of his face, one arm hanging uselessly. But he still held a pistol. Somehow he had slipped through the smoke while the team focused on the device. His eyes found the open case. Give it to me. he said. Mara stared at him. Outside no one had a clear line. Graves smiled faintly. You still think truth fixes anything? Truth is just another weapon. It kills whoever stands too close. Rook struggled to rise. Graves stepped closer to the threshold but did not cross it. He knew about the trigger. He had planned every inch of this. Slide the case out, he said. Or I shoot the dog first? Mara's hand tightened on Rook's collar. The dog bared his teeth, but he could barely lift his head. Mara looked at Graves and saw not a monster from nightmares, but something smaller, a man who had survived by making other people carry the cost of his fear. You made me believe I left them, she said. You did leave them, because you ordered us forward. You obeyed. The words struck the old wound, but they no longer owned it. Mara looked down at Rook. Mara didn't. Rook's eyes met hers. A strange peace moved through Mara then. Not calm, not certainty. Something harder. She had spent 6 years asking why she lived. Tonight, the answer was in her hands, breathing beside her, written in a dead man's letter, guarded by a dog who had never accepted a lie. She slid the field case toward Graves. His eyes flashed with triumph. But she kept the recorder hidden under her thigh. Graves crouched and reached across the threshold. Rook moved with the last strength in his body. Not at Graves' throat. Not at Graves' throat. Not at his gun hand. At his sleeve. The dog clamped down and pulled. Graves lost balance. His boot crossed the threshold. The pressure trigger beeped faster. Mara threw herself over Rook and grabbed the recorder. Holden shouted outside. Graves screamed as he realized what he had done. A blast did not come. Instead, foam erupted under the vehicle. The suppressant team, finally in position beneath the chassis, flooded the device housing and shorted the trigger circuit at the exact second Graves stepped onto it. Security soldiers seized him through the smoke, dragging him backward, the field case sliding away from his reach. Graves fought like a man, not afraid of prison, but terrified of being remembered correctly. Holden appeared at the rear door, face streaked with soot. Clear, someone shouted. Device disabled. Mara tried to move. Her body refused. Holden climbed in and lifted the field case first, then reached for her. No, Mara rasped. Rook, we have him. 2 soldiers eased the wounded dog onto a blanket with more care than Mara had seen some men give the living. Rook's teeth finally released Graves' torn sleeve. As they carried him out, Mara followed on hands and knees, refusing to let go of the recorder. The hangar roof collapsed behind them in a roar of sparks. Rain hit Mara's face. Air filled her lungs so sharply, she sobbed. Across the tarmac, Graves was forced to his knees. Holden stood before him with the field case open. Soldiers gathered in a widening circle, silent as the colonel removed the blood-marked map, the old route file, and Sam Calder's letter. Boone arrived on a medical stretcher pushed by 2 medics, pale but alive. He raised one trembling hand toward Rook. The dog, barely conscious, lifted his head. Mara crawled beside him and placed Sam's dog tag against his collar. You finished it, she whispered, but the recorder in her hand blinked with a tiny red light. Still functional, still holding whatever had happened inside Mercy's 6th last ride. And Mara knew the worst truth had not been spoken yet. The dead were about to testify. They played the recording in the base chapel, because no room on the command floor felt honest enough. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Smoke still lifted from the old hangar and gray ribbons beyond the hospital windows. Soldiers filled the pews in silence, some still wearing soot, some with bandaged hands, some who had been ordered hours earlier to treat Mara like a liability, and now could not meet her eyes. Rook lay on a padded stretcher beside the first row, sedated but alive. A veterinary surgeon had removed the bullet fragments before sunrise. He would limp, they said. He would scar. He would live. Mara sat on the floor beside him because chairs felt too far away. Boone lay in a hospital bed near the aisle, hooked to monitors guarded by men Colonel Holden trusted with their lives. He looked impossibly young beneath the white blankets. Sam Calder's dog, Tack, rested in his palm. Major Graves stood handcuffed near the back between two armed guards. His uniform was burned. His rank remained on his chest, but it no longer protected him from the eyes in the room. Colonel Holden connected the recorder to a projector. The chapel wall flickered, static first, then the interior of the Mercy 6 armored vehicle. 6 years ago, Mara saw Sam Calder younger, bleeding from the temple but alive. She saw smoke beyond the windows. She saw Rook, younger too, pacing and barking toward the road. She saw herself on the screen, unconscious against the side door, face covered in dust. Her hand found Rook's fur. The recording crackled with gunfire. Sam's voice came through, ragged but clear. "Command, this is Calder. Mercy convoy hit. We have survivors. Repeat, survivors. Need extraction at grid." Another voice interrupted. "Graves. Negative. Mercy lead. Hold position. We are burning out." "Here," Sam said. "Veil is down. We have wounded alive." A long pause. Then Graves answered, "No extraction authorized." On screen, Sam stared at the radio as if he could not understand the language anymore. "Say again." Graves' voice lowered. "Your route was unauthorized. Command will classify this as enemy action. Destroy sensitive material, if able." Sam looked directly toward the mission camera. For a moment, through 6 years of distance, it felt as if he were looking at Mara. "Rook," he said, voice breaking. "Guard Mercy." The younger dog barked. The recording jumped. Hours passed in fragments. Sam dragging Mara out of frame. Sam returning with blood on his hands. Sam speaking names into the camera. Names of survivors. Names of those who died waiting. Coordinates. Times. Orders refused. Orders given. Rafe's voice again, warning not to transmit. Then came a final clip. Sam, weaker now, seated beside a boy in a torn local militia jacket. Boone, younger, terrified, barely more than a child. Sam pressed his dog tag and a wrap packet into Boone's hands. "If you make it," Sam whispered, "find Mercy, not command. Mercy. The dog will know." Boone cried on the recording. "I don't know her." "You will," Sam said. "She carries guilt like a flag. Tell her to put it down." Mara covered her mouth. The chapel blurred. Sam leaned closer to the camera one last time. "Mara, if this reaches you, you listened to the wrong voice once. So did I. That does not make the lie ours. Rook knew. I should have fought harder. Forgive yourself enough to finish the work." The recording ended. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence was not empty. It was full of all the names that had been locked away. Full of every report corrected too late. Every folded flag handed to families with half a truth inside. Colonel Holden removed his cap. One by one, every soldier in the chapel did the same. Then Holden turned to Mara. "Staff Sergeant Mara Vale," he said, his voice rough, "on behalf of every person who failed to hear what this dog, this soldier, and your team tried to tell us, I owe you more than an apology." Mara stood slowly. Her legs shook. "I don't want an apology," she said. "I want their names restored. I want their families told. I want Boone protected. I want Graves tried in daylight. And I want Rook retired with honor, not evaluated like damaged equipment." Holden nodded. "Dom." Graves laughed once from the back of the chapel. It was a small, ugly sound. "You think this ends clean," he said. "You think a ceremony fixes war." Mara turned to him. "No," she said, "but truth changes who has to carry it. Boone lifted his hand from the bed. He whispered. Mara went to him. He opened his fingers. Sam's dog tag lay there. He wanted you to have it. Mara took it, but then looked at Rook. The dog's eyes had opened, half-lidded, tired, still watching. Mara smiled through tears and clipped Sam Calder's tag onto Rook's collar beside his own. No, she said softly. He earned the right to carry Sam home. Rook exhaled and lowered his head onto her boot. Weeks later, when the official report was rewritten, it used words the old one had avoided: betrayal, survivors, concealment, courage. Major Silas Graves was taken from the base in handcuffs, not through a back door, but past the memorial wall where Mercy's 6 missing names had finally been engraved. Boone testified from a wheelchair, voice shaking, but steady enough. Holden stood behind him. Mara stood beside him. Rook lay at their feet, wearing Sam's tag. The families came on a clear afternoon. Mara faced them with no speech prepared. She had saved lives in burning vehicles, under gunfire, inside tents full of shouting men. But nothing had ever frightened her like the eyes of people who had waited 6 years for the truth. Sam Calder's mother touched the dog tag on Rook's collar and whispered, "Did he suffer?" Mara could have given the gentle answer. Instead, she gave the true one. "Yes," she said, "but he was not alone. Rook stayed, and he used his last strength to bring him home." The woman knelt in front of the old war dog and wrapped both arms around his neck. Rook did not move at first. Then he leaned his scarred head into her shoulder and closed his eyes. That was when Mara finally cried. Not the controlled tears she had allowed in dark rooms. Not the silent grief she had swallowed before duty. She cried like someone setting down a weight she had mistaken for her own bones. Boone, still weak, reached for her hand. "You saved me," he said. Mara looked at Rook. "No," she answered. "He saved us both." At sunset, they held a small ceremony beside the restored Mercy 6 vehicle. The burned metal had been cleaned, but not repaired. Holden said some scars were evidence, not damage. Mara stood before it, with Rook at her side. She remembered the burning Humvee, the rescue lane, the dog's teeth on her sleeve, the fury she had felt when he would not let her leave. Now she understood. Sometimes loyalty does not look like obedience. Sometimes mercy bares its teeth. Sometimes the bravest soul on the battlefield is the one who cannot explain the truths. So he drags you away from the lie until you finally listen. Rook leaned against her leg as the flag lowered. Mara placed her hand on his head. "Ready to go home?" she asked. The dog looked once at the engraved names, once at Sam's mother, once at Boone, and then back at Mara. For the first time all day, his tail moved. Not much, just enough. And that was enough for everyone who had survived to understand that Mercy 6 was no longer missing. They had been found by the dog who remembered, the soldier who endured, and the medic who finally forgave herself for living. Rook never spoke a word, but his silence carried the truth farther than any command report ever had. He stopped Mara from leaving the burning vehicle because he remembered what men tried to erase. In the end, loyalty saved the living and returned honor to the dead. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from, and subscribe for more stories of courage, sacrifice, brave dogs, and hidden heroes.